Hello, everybody. I'm Stacy with Stacy's Organizing and Decorating for Life. I'm here to help you organize your thoughts and decorate your perspectives. So today we're going to talk about how do we find peace in the release. So if you like that that's our topic today, please hit the like and subscribe button below. But before we get started, I want to thank you if you're back to this channel and if you watch this channel or listen to this channel on a weekly basis. I sure do love and appreciate you, and I thank you so much. If you're new to this channel, I have to let you know that I'm not a doctor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a scientist, any of those things, but I love those things, and sometimes I refer to those things as I'm going to today, because I just do these videos trying to give you valuable, down-to-earth, soul-felt information that you can relate to and understand. But really what I am is a life coach. I have a webpage called stacyforlife.com, and on this webpage I write a monthly blog, so I invite you to check that out. But also there's a description of the services that I provide as a life coach. So once again, I invite you to check that out at stacyforlife.com. But I do value you and I appreciate your time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on this topic. Okay, so how do we find peace in the release? My friend Susan and I were talking the other day, and I love when I'm talking to people because sometimes Spirit just speaks through me. I can't even remember what I say, so I'll have to refer back to my note of what I said, but I was like, dang, this is good. I'm going to write this down, So we were talking about how when we go through the experience of a pain, rather than staying stuck, that we go through the process of it. And when we go through the process of the pain, we get to acceptance. And when we can get into acceptance, we can get into, forgiveness. And then when we get into forgiveness, our soul, we just feel lighter. So the quote that I came up with it says that the reward for release is peace. So remember that the reward for release is peace. So we're going to get back to that in a minute, and you're going to understand that on a more deeper level. But as my clients come to me, oftentimes they come to me, Stacy, I just want peace. And I'm like, I know. Sometimes I just want peace too, But I have found ways to get peace and how to regulate that. And last week I talked about Bruce D. Perry and Oprah Winfrey's book, What Happened to You? Because what they suggest, is oftentimes when we're sick, our emotional states cause us to get sick, and really how that happens is through our past. I talk about how in Reiki we go through the different healings. The symbols of Reiki are healing the past, the emotional, and the physical. So when we look at that, we are able to regulate, to figure out where that came from. But we have to go back to the past. So that's what this book does, is it talks about going back to the past, and that's how oftentimes our physical illnesses are manifest. We've talked a lot about intergenerational trauma. So in looking at all of this is the notes that I took, so I have to put my glasses on now because I don't have any monitor to read through. So through acceptance, we learn that the reward for release is peace. And then I told you just now that I talked about that book. When I talked about regulation, rhythm, that comes from our infancy. I talked about that in this book. So we have, first off, when we look at the regulation, which most people that I talk to don't talk about that. This is the first I've heard of it in this book, but it makes perfect and total sense. Sorry, that's the Grinch in the background whining. He wants out. But he distracted me. So when we talk about the regulation, it's the heartbeat in the womb. That's the first thing that the baby hears. That's the first thing that we hear when we're formed, is that heartbeat in the womb. So we find comfort in that. But when we're born, then we have to find comfort through connection. So we find that connection through the smell of our caregiver, and all of that. But also how we find comfort is the answered cries. We cry because we can't feed ourselves, we can't change our own diapers, so we cry to be fed. We cry to have our diapers changed. But we cry after all of that, and then what happens? I spoke last week about oftentimes what happens is that our feelings are invalidated when we're told not to cry, or we'll get something to cry about. or that we're told, and this is, our parents didn't know any better way to communicate with us. This video is not to blame or shame. It's just so that we can reflect and acknowledge and then accept what it is that happened to us, as the book says. What happened to you? Because when we stuff our emotions, that's going to come out in sickness. When we do these different things, and so then it's going to come out sideways. It's going to come out in another way. So when we can get into our bodies, then we can understand what's going on. So if our parents answered, and if they answered all the time and were super attentive, then we're liable to grow up to have unrealistic expectations that everybody's going to come and run to our beck and call. And when people don't, then we're going to act out. If they didn't attend to us, then we're going to feel like we are neglected and abandoned, and we're going to maybe play small in life all the time and never step up to the plate and always feel like we're never good enough or what have you. I can't tell you, most of us can't even remember. I can't remember if I was taken care of or not. I imagine that I was, because I was a colicky baby from what I understand. So I don't know what I experienced in the womb. None of us remembers that. So, I'm not saying that we can remember back that far is what I'm telling you. But we do know that there's certain things, if we're feeling a certain way, we can go back and try to remember the tapes of how that learned to play out. So, like I said, it's not to blame and shame, because I think our parents probably did try to do better than their parents did. And all of it is part of our evolution, that we chose our parents. We don't know how this life thing goes on. Nobody knows. They don't come back and tell us, because if we can't even remember when we were born, we certainly can't remember if we had a past life or what have you. So that's the gift, right? But rhythm, when we look at rhythm and this regulation, and we can acknowledge that. We know that rhythm is very important, because when you are trying to heal, a lot of times people are trying to heal through music. We listen to music. We listen to sad songs when we're feeling sad. We listen to happy songs, or sometimes it's vice versa. We just music, rhythm. The clocks have a rhythm. This earth has a rhythm. Everything has a rhythm if we pay attention. The problem is life has been so fast-paced that a lot of people don't pay attention to the natural rhythms of healing in the earth, because all of that is connected to our right and divine healing. So in looking at this, the rhythm is a sort of energy. That's what rhythm is energy. So even when you're watching a movie and they're trying to set the mood for the movie, you're going to have music to set the mood for the movie. So we've always got a rhythm in this life. And the movies that we've played out in our past are going to be the movies that we played out in the future till we change the channel. Okay, so like I said, this is all meant for our evolvement. And so I'm thinking that in this evolvement, instead of telling our kids, like I suggested last week in the video, shut up or I'm going to give you something to cry about, and invalidating our kids' feelings, or ignoring their needs and stuff, that we're all just evolving and that things are changing, whether we like it or not, and they're changing rapidly. And I do believe that it is in creation of something new. And so what I'm thinking nowadays is what we're learning in this evolvement is in healthy families, or ideal, should I say, that kids are encouraged to share their likes and dislikes, and are then guided to the investigation and safety of decision making. This is through healing that parents learn this. But some parents are like me and my parents, as the pains that we had in our past created what we thought was healing through our own children. And I'm only going to share my experience of doing this, because I don't share other people's. But my experience of doing this is that somewhere in my life, I thought that I was ugly, and I thought that I wasn't smart. Now, I can tell you that my parents never said, Stacy, you're ugly and you're not smart. In fact, they would say the opposite. But just, I didn't feel that way. But the thing was that I experienced trauma. So when I went to school, I couldn't focus, because sometimes, when my parents had fights, I didn't know where I was going to live. Sometimes when they had fights, I didn't know what I was going to come home to. So this set me up to kind of, the life that I have experienced at times, and through my healing that I'm able to share with you all. And we set ourselves up for that because that's that comfort. When we talk about comfort, we find comfort in what we know. So we have to learn something new to do something new. I shared in a meeting the other day that I still, even though I've got 24 years clean, that I still have to, do something I never did if I want to get something I've never gotten, And so it's not that we evolve to any plateau. So we can't heal our own wounds through making life better for our kids. So like I said, my parents didn't tell me that. The teachers would tell me, Stacy, you run like hot and cold water. You put on your thinking cap, da-da-da-da-da. The teachers would notice that I was unfocused, because the trauma in the family. It wasn't that I wasn't. And I've learned this today. But had I not done this journey and this looking back, this reflecting, then I wouldn't know that that's why I did those things. And the teachers weren't bullies. I really wasn't able to focus. My parents weren't bad because they really did have problems. So when you can let go of the judgment, you can get into acceptance. And when you can get into acceptance, you can get into forgiveness. So in healthy families or ideal families, that's what I think that they'll do in the future, that we are evolving through healing. But people didn't know there's such thing as healing because of this internet, because of many other different avenues. There's free ways to learn that healing. I personally had to take Love and Logic when I became a single mom because I didn't know how to do this. I didn't have a great example. My parents loved me. They took care of me, but we had trauma. Some people have trauma. So I'm going to close with this here, because I was so proud of myself when I read this and that quote that I did yesterday, because I read this today after the quote yesterday. And we talk about spirit and divine synchronicities. This is truly, totally one, and it also shows that, we're on our healing path. And when I'm healing, you're healing, because, that's the thing, is that this is about rhythm. It's about energy. And that's what healing is rhythm and energy. We keep creating the same thing until we learn something different, and that calls for us to reflect on what we learned to begin with. Because, as I said, we can't heal from those things. Before I read this, though, I keep forgetting to go back. So I sent my daughter to the best schools, or what I considered to be the best schools. I wanted her to be able to go to learn because of my own pain of feeling stupid. So I wanted to send her to schools where she got the best education. I can tell you right now, my daughter, right at this time in her life, she does not care that I sent her to those schools to get the best education. In fact, it made her angry because we moved, because when I found a better one, we would move to a better one. I wanted to be close to those schools. I was a single mom. I didn't always have a running car. I didn't always have this and that. I mean, it was a struggle, and I can tell you that she's not saying, oh, gee, I'm glad you moved me around and that I went to the best school. She really does not care. So our old tapes and our parents of the past and their parents would say to us, well, what an unappreciative person. But no, they have a right to their own mind and their own ideas. And demanding appreciation doesn't create appreciation, is all I'm saying. And that's okay. That I did the best that I could, and I acknowledge that moving around might not have made her feel secure. In fact, I guess it did not make her feel secure. But I did the best that I could, so I own that. What I was trying to do is create one thing for her and created another thing. And that's oftentimes what we do when we're trying to heal our own kids from our own wounds. But I think in the future, what I was reading about is that we're going to be able to help heal the universe through healing ourselves, when we're able to really get a non-judgmental and a forgiving and accepting attitude about life in general. So let's look at this about the world in general, because look what I'm about to read to you. Please listen up. This is good. So Dr. Perry says, in talking about this rhythm and everything, he says, when the attentive and responsive adult comes to the crying infant, two very important things happen. The baby feels the pleasure of being regulated after being distressed, and also experiences the sight, smell, touch, sound, and movement of human interaction. The loving sensations provided by the adult caregiver start to become associated with pleasure. In thousands of moments when the caregivers respond to the needs of the infant, the brain is connecting relationship to reward and regulation. And so when you are an attentive, attuned, and responsive caregiver to these little ones, you're literally weaving together this powerful three-part association. You're building a healthy root system for the tree of regulation. And furthermore, this is highlighted, okay? Furthermore, as we talked about earlier, these bonding experiences create the infant's worldview about humans. A consistent, nurturing caregiver builds an internal view that people are safe, predictable, and caring. So it's like we are creating this. You know, we're always creating. And the truth is, for me, I don't think everything's always predictable. So if you're shaking your head at the predictable part, I can tell you, I don't think everything's predictable either. But I know within me, it's predictable, you know. So that's the thing, is that we are our caregivers after we're 18 or 21. So, you know, it is our purpose to be healing, that we're still crying, and that we're always supposed to be crying. We're going to cry tears of joy. We're going to cry tears of pain, because as long as we're on this earth, there is that, because it's all connected to love and fear, right? So we're going to feel these ranges of emotions, and it's your job as an adult now to validate yourself, whatever you're feeling, to say, I'm feeling this because, and then get into acceptance that you felt that, because whatever you're feeling, somebody else wanted to feel. That would have been their ideal. So that's why I'm saying this is non-judgment, because this is what I've learned, is this, that one person, you know, their language of love or their comfort is one thing. Like I have a friend that she loves when she's sick for somebody to dote on her and wait on her. When I'm sick, I want you to leave me alone. You can come ask me something every once in a while, but just leave. I want to be left alone when I'm sick. But not everybody's that way. So it's just about, you know, that the individuals, you know, and it's not about the judgment. Nobody needs a label or a title or a judgment. It's about love. Are we coming from love, or are we coming from fear? So remember, the reward for release is peace. The reward for release is peace. So if you want peace, it's in the release. So thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have a great rest of your week, and I look forward to connecting with you again next week. As always, you can reach out to me at the email address, stacyreinick@gmail.com. You can even, if you like, contribute to my channel that way through PayPal. However, even if you feel that these videos are helpful and will help somebody else, you know, to understand what's going on, it's when we don't take things personally, because it's not personal. It's just life on life's terms. And so we can all help somebody else through the lessons we learn. So I wish you much peace and love, and I look forward to connecting with you again next week. Thanks. Bye.